Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back once again. Today I thought it would be a good idea to go over some of my plans for 2017 in terms of most of the games I plan on checking out. And what really inspired me to make this video was actually a comment I got recently. And I'll make sure and put it on screen so you guys can see as well, but basically it's just a comment asking whether or not I have any other games planned aside from Skyrim, and how that's not all that interesting anymore. Which I gotta say, I entirely agree with. When it comes to Skyrim, it's without a doubt still a fun game, but the main reason I picked up the special edition was just to finally get a chance to play the DLC, since that was one thing I never got to do in the original game. But at this point we have been playing it for a while, and we've beaten the DLC as well. And once again, even though it's not boring, I without a doubt am ready to kind of move on to some of the newer games of 2017. With that being said, for any of you wondering, I'd say the Skyrim playthrough is most likely going to come to an end sometime around the 24th of January. The reason being that's when Resident Evil 7 comes out, which is a game I've been pretty excited for recently, and I think playing that will definitely be a nice change of pace for the channel. Just because it really has been quite a long time since we've played any kind of horror game. I think the last one we did might have been Alien Isolation, which was a long time ago, I must say. And Resident Evil so far is looking like it should be pretty promising in terms of not only the story, but also just the creepiness of it in general. Now, if I remember correctly, I think the last Resident Evil game I played was 5, and I ended up really enjoying that one. I never got a chance to play 6, which I've heard is for the best. But even still, I'm excited to get back into the series and hopefully get the shit scared out of me. So that pretty much sums up January, but before we get to any of the other months, really quickly I wanted to go over some of the stuff that's probably going to carry out throughout the year and doesn't really have any sort of set release date. So number one in terms of that will be our Fallout builds. Not really sure how long we're going to continue those, but at the very least, I would love to finish our Raider Town, the new vault that we started, and then maybe for a finale, some kind of personal home. And I've also seen that there's a mod coming out that seems really cool, and what it's going to allow you to do is pretty much transfer your settlements between saves, therefore allowing you to start a completely new game with other settlements that people have made before, which is something I've always wanted, and it also means you guys could start some new games with a lot of the towns and settlements that I've built. Also, throughout the year, I really want to continue doing videos on Star Citizen, whether that be just some of the more story-driven gameplay that I've done so far, or quite possibly some more guides and whatnot, similar to the How to Play one I did not too long ago. But anyways, moving on to February. First off, we have For Honor, and then a bit later on, Halo Wars 2 comes out. And in terms of these, I am pretty excited, but what's kind of weird is that they both worry me in the opposite way, because For Honor, I think the gameplay looks really cool, at least based on what I've seen so far. Yet, for the story, I'm just not really sure how well that's been done. On the other hand though, for Halo Wars 2, I got a good feeling the story's gonna be damn good, since I really enjoyed the first one. But that being said, unlike For Honor when it comes to the gameplay, I'm still not really confident that it's gonna be all that great. But maybe it's better we go in that way and then hopefully be pleasantly surprised. I guess we'll just have to wait and see though. Next up, moving on to March, we have Mass Effect Andromeda. And this is a series I've never really gotten into before, even though I've always sort of wanted to. But I'm hoping it's going to turn out to be somewhat similar to Witcher 3, in the sense that that was the first time I had jumped into that series, and even with that being the case, The Witcher 3 turned out to be my favorite game of all time. After March, there aren't really too many set release dates, but sometime in the spring, we've got a few neat side-scroller style games that I think might be pretty fun to check out, starting off with Little Nightmares and then moving on to Cuphead. Now honestly, both of these are still two that I'm a little unsure of, but at that point in the year there really isn't too much else to check out, or at least in terms of games that really have caught my attention. I will say though, Little Nightmares looks pretty damn unique and also seems quite a bit creepy as well. And then for Cuphead, I think I saw it for the first time back in maybe E3 of 2015, and I've just been waiting for it to come out ever since. And I think the main thing that's really drawn me to becoming interested in that game is mainly the art style, just because it is so similar to a lot of the old cartoons I used to watch as a kid, like Tom and Jerry, Roadrunner. I mean, the list really does go on. And I'm willing to bet those are both going to be fairly short games, so even if we are still playing Mass Effect at that point, I got a good feeling we'll still be able to squeeze those in, or at least one of them. As for the release dates, I think that's about as narrow as you can get, so for the rest of 2017, these games are going to be a bit more scrambled up, but I'll try not to get too out of place. So starting off, we have Sea of Thieves, which seems like it's going to be a pretty lighthearted, open-world pirate game. Now honestly, I can't remember if there's ever been a great pirate game that I've played, but from what I've seen so far, I'm thinking this may be the first. Other than that, there's also Gwent, which I'm sure a lot of you probably guessed I was excited for, after seeing how much I enjoyed The Witcher 3. And throughout my first playthrough of The Witcher 3, I never really got too into Gwent. However, when it came to my second playthrough, that was pretty much the main thing I did. And I even ended up enjoying it so much that I went as far as to buy some of the real card sets for that game. And it also seems like for the standalone version of Gwent, they've added some much needed changes, and from what I've heard, there's also a full-on story that goes along with it. And I think that'll end up being really cool. Also set to release in 2017 is State of Decay 2. It's been a very long time since I played the first one, but I think that was one of the original zombie games I'd ever played aside from the Resident Evil series and then House of the Dead for the old Sega, which I really wish I still had because we even had 2 of the guns that went along with that game, and man oh man did I sink some hours into that. As for State of Decay though, I'd say it's one of the better zombie games, and also unlike a lot of the other survival zombie games out there, State of Decay will actually be a finished product, so you could say that's definitely one thing on the plus side. Also set to release in, I think, the fall of 2017 is Red Dead Redemption 2, and I think it's safe to say that's probably the game I'm most looking forward to, and I think that may end up being the first game we play on the channel that's not on PC. So I will have to end up buying a capture card for that one, but let's be honest, I think it's going to be well worth it. And speaking of zombie games, there's also Days Gone, which should be coming out this year, although I will say it's another one that I'm just a little bit skeptical about, so I think in terms of that we'll still have to wait and see. But the main thing that's really drawn my attention to that game was seeing just the sheer amount of zombies they have, because it was looking like you could have hundreds to maybe thousands chasing you at one time. So I think that game may actually end up being pretty damn exciting. From what we've seen, I don't really know if the story's gonna be all that great, but I guess you could say that's where The Last of Us 2 comes in. And between that and then Red Dead Redemption, I'd say I'm really torn when it comes to deciding which one I'm more excited for. And I think even more so, I'm really curious to see if either of those sequels are gonna end up living up to their predecessors. Moving on though, it's looking like God of War should also release in 2017, and similar to Mass Effect, this is going to be another series that I'll be jumping into for the first time. Luckily though, from what I can tell, God of War seems like it's got a pretty cool combat system and also an interesting looking story to go along with it. And also on the list, although I'm not sure if this is going to be a 2017 release or maybe even early 2018, but the game I'm talking about is Mountain Blade Bannerlord. I think this will turn out to be a game that's going to be really fun with a few buddies, and if someone comes out with a Game of Thrones mod, it should end up making it that much better. And then last, but certainly not least, is another one that, once again, I'm still not too sure if it'll come out in 2017 or maybe early 2018, but that's Squadron 42. Now, although Squadron 42 and Star Citizen are the same universe, just to clarify for those who aren't too familiar with the game, Squadron 42 is more so the single player, and that's going to have actors like Mark Hamill, Gary Oldman, and even Andy Serkis in it, which should end up making for a great story. And although we may not have as much freedom as we would with Star Citizen itself, I think Squadron 42 is going to be a nice single player campaign to go through first that should end up, at the very least, keeping us busy till the final release of Star Citizen. As for 2017, though, that should be about everything. However, if anything ends up coming up that wasn't on the list but still really catches my attention, just don't be surprised if I end up playing it. So that being said, hopefully you guys enjoy this list and kind of sneak peek at what's to come. By the way, feel free to let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. Once again, thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one.